Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's Excel with Business and Filtered webinar. We are going to be doing some intermediate and advanced Microsoft Word formatting um, exercises. So I want to be sure that everybody can see my screen. I feel like every time I do a webinar, I ultimately mess something up. I forget to record, or I share the wrong screen, or I keep myself on mute, which has happened too. So you should be hearing audio at this time, and you should also be able to see my screen. And if that is not happening, good. I've got some people sharing on the chat saying that they can hear me fine and they can see my screen. So if you can't hear me, then it's something on your end. So a few housekeeping items. If you, yay, thanks everybody. I need that feedback because with everyone else on mute, it just feels like I'm talking into a dark hole. And so I don't know if things aren't going wrong. If you can't, if you if you don't tell me. So a question to ask, my webinar style is that if a question is related to what I'm talking about, I will fold the question in during the webinar, but I do ask that you put the questions in the Q&A panel. I try to monitor the Q&A panel and the chat simultaneously while also teaching the webinar, and sometimes questions get lost in the chat box. But the Q&A is an easy way for questions to be organized on my end. So just keep that in mind if you have a question. All right, so then you should now be seeing a screen with my picture on it. That just is to help everybody know that we're not on the main screen anymore, and we're jumping into the webinar. So to quickly introduce myself, I am quite a regular here on Excel with Business and Filtered's Wednesday webinars. You may have taken one of my webinars before where I have covered PowerPoint design and also leadership skills. I think I've also done a Google Docs one recently. So I've done quite a few. If you want to contact me or check out anything else that I have, feel free to go to my website, www.cltleads.com, and also connect with me on LinkedIn. All right, so let's get started. So I have a love-hate relationship with Microsoft Word, especially when I am creating complex or lengthy documents. I always seem to get in a fight with formatting. I always seem to get in a fight with margins. If I insert pictures, I'm fighting the line up against all of the text and what page they're on. So today I'm going to share the master formatting tips I use to ease that frustration. So I'm going to be talking about the things that just make my life easier. The audience for this post or this webinar is anybody who is creating complex documents. So complex means they have a lot of components: tables, pictures, title changes, fonts, sizes, or very lengthy documents that like a book or like a dissertation or something that's going to need a table of contents. So that's the mindset in which I created this webinar, complex or lengthy documents. So hopefully today will give you some tips so that you get less frustrated with Microsoft Word. They absolutely helped me in all of my frustrations. So Word has some great functionality that eases formatting frustrations, like I just mentioned. And here are the areas that I am going to cover. We're going to first talk about sections. Sections are something I feel like everybody is missing, that they're not used commonly enough. Then we're going to talk about tables. I really like organizing information into tables versus just having pages and pages of texts and bullets and numbers. And tables have some really great formatting features that make them easy to use. Styles. So you may not be using Microsoft Word styles. They've made me more efficient and saved a lot of headaches. And then I'm going to share my top 3 favorite hints with you. 3 other things that I really love when it comes to formatting in Microsoft Word. There is a question in the chat right now. Somebody is maybe having a hard time hearing. That could be on your end. It seems like that the volume is fine on my end. So a few things before we dive in. When you are creating a complex or long document, you want to do some pre-planning. Oh, good, it worked itself out. Fantastic. You want to do some pre-planning. So you ask yourself, is this something that's going to need a table of contents or an appendix? Because that you need to know that in advance. Is it going to need page numbers? Am I going to have specific section headings? Do I have a need for different margins or different layouts? Do I need some of the document in portrait mode and some of the document in landscape mode? So just thinking through what you need at the beginning is helpful, because I find that I get the most frustrated in Word when I realize, oh, at the end of this document, it probably would be really great if I had a table of contents, but then I've set up my style in such a way that trying to match sizes and fonts becomes really complicated on the table of contents. So then I just give up. So planning a little bit in advance will help you a lot. So section breaks are a hidden gem that let you create fancy formatting without the headaches. And I do mean that they're a hidden gem, because what I think most people view as a section break is just creating a new page, jumping to a new page. And that's not it at all. So when you think of a section break, here are 3 examples. You want to think of it as dividing your document into different sections. So maybe you need to change the page number style. So maybe section 1 is Roman numerals, and then section 2 is 1 through 6. This is how you would make an appendix. So you could do 1 through 6 and for your section 1, and then section 2 would be an appendix with Roman numerals. Another example of a section is no page number on the first page and maybe even the last page. I know that you can, when you're inserting page numbers, you can say, hey, no page number on the first page. But this can be even more complex. No page number on page 1 and page 10 and page 20. Another example is changing page orientation. So this is a super fancy trick that might be someone's most favorite thing that they learned today, but you can change page orientation in the middle of a document in order to, just by using section breaks. I have done this before where I had visuals in an appendix. I've also done it before to just differentiate an appendix from the rest of a document. So I love using section breaks for that. All right, so let's dive into section breaks. So here's what I mean about section breaks being a hidden gem. Most people just view section breaks as this. You go to the Insert tab in Word and you click on Page Break. And that is a type of section break, but there are a few other more powerful options if you go to the Layout tab. So if you've got 2 screens right now, or you can move your desktop into dual screen, then you can have Microsoft Word open right now and you can practice some of this stuff in real time. So let me go back. So see how on the top ribbon we have Home, Insert, Design, Layout, References, etc. So on the Insert tab, you've got that page break icon, which is a form of a section break. But on the Layout tab, you have better section break options. So let me go through these. So page break, that first one, which is also the one under the Insert tab, it's used to put the next item of text at the top of the next page. That's it. It's not a way to change any type of formatting. It's just breaking your text and putting the new line of text on the next page. So if you don't need to change the structure of your document, you don't need anything more than a page break, right? So none of the margins are changing, none of the, you don't need portrait or landscape layout, you don't want to change page numbers, then page break is really helpful because it bumps text to a brand new page. But if you want any type of section formatting, where, like I said before in the previous screen, page numbers, etc., then page break is not your friend. What you want to do is go down to the second section that says section breaks. I'm going to try out the fancy, ooh, look at that. I don't draw really great lines. But if you go to the section break segment, then this is where the magic is. So continuous break is most common. So I'm going to skip over next page first. Continuous break is most commonly used with columns because it changes the layout on the same page. So on page 1 in your document, you want to have columns and you want to have text that goes all the way across the document. You would use continuous to make that look really clean. You can insert a column, but I would also insert a continuous break, and that tells your document, that tells Microsoft Word that, okay, we're done with the columns, we're moving back to regular text. The column break that you see up under as your second option is not a section break. It just forces the next line of text to the top of the next column. So I'm not even going to show you that one because I don't want it to get even more confusing than it might already sound. So continuous is a section break on the same page, but my favorite one is next page. So next page starts a section break and a new page. So it's the page break at the top plus a new section break. So by section break, again, that means I'm going to change some kind of formatting, page numbers, page orientation, maybe different headers and different footers. That is a big one too. So my favorite is next page, but continuous is the other one that that you would use for section breaks. I stay away from even and odd because it complicates the structure and can easily become overwhelming. If you are writing a really lengthy book or a really lengthy dissertation and you want every new chapter to start on an even page, then absolutely by all means do that. But I just don't have much use for it. So somebody asked if I could mention the keyboard shortcuts. I do not know the keyboard shortcuts for these. I am defunct when it comes to keyboard shortcuts. My brain can't hold them. So if somebody knows keyboard shortcuts or wants to look them up and post them in the group chat, that would be a huge help to me. So now that I've explained section breaks, I want to show you a section break in action. Oh, look, that annotate stays up there. I guess I have to clear it. There we go. Okay, so take a look at this pre-recorded video where I show you how to use section break. You'll see here that I have a document where I want to put part 2 on a separate page. So I go to my next page and I change it to landscape. And there we go. So I'm going to play it again and I'm going to explain it better this time. So let's start back in the document. So I have this document where I want to insert a landscape page after the chart. So I go to section break, next page, and then I go to orientation, landscape. There you go. So now I've just I've inserted a landscape page into a document full of portrait pages. So let's do it one more time. So I've clicked on the table and then I've gone to breaks, next page. So now a section break has been added on the new page. And in that new section break, I change orientation to landscape, and there we go. So there are some keyboard shortcuts coming up. Control-Enter is new page, continuing the same format. Ooh, that's a good one. I'll try to remember that. Someone just said, I don't have video. Will this webinar be available online later? Yes, it will. Last time I forgot to record. This time I did not. Yay. Okay, so there's section breaks in action. I'm going to go back one more time and just show you why you would use a section break and change page number styles, no page number, page orientation. You want to be sure that you find it under layout and breaks. And then my favorite one is next page, and continuous is the other one that you might also use. In the video that I just showed you, I covered next page section break and inserting a page of a different orientation. So let's take a look at that one more time. And so now that page 2 is landscape orientation. All right, so section breaks are my favorite because I don't want to change formatting throughout a document without using them. It's going to throw everything off. So next page, again, my favorite. All right, so let's now jump to tables. I love using tables. Again, they are a much better way to visually convey information and break up a long document. And a lot of people I find don't use tables because they feel like the formatting is too tricky. It's hard to get the table centered. All of the cell sizes are different. It's hard to get everything lined up, and I get it. So I'm going to give you some formatting examples to show you how to bypass all of that, those frustrating things. Also, another reason that, another reason why this section is really good is you also use sections. You can also use sections when you're making tables and putting them into your document, because then you're separating text from the table. And again, it just makes it that much easier to keep your formatting structured, especially with really long documents. So let's jump to basic table editing. Got ahead of myself there. So when you create a table, you can just use Microsoft Word's default table formats to make the table look fancy. And that just, after you create your table and you click on it, then you click on Table Tools Design tab. And so the one that is pictured on my page here is this third one that has the blue square around it with the arrow pointing to it. So you can use all of these pre-made table formats. I like to use them because it makes it easier on me. I might change a color here or there, but it's just less brain work for me. But let's take it a step further, because not many people know that over here on this left side, you can use the table style options section to customize the table. So let's say I really like the look of this table, and but I don't like column A being shaded in. So I like the color blue. I like that it's light blue here in the other rows, but I don't like that column A is dark blue. So over here in table style options, what we see is that header row and first column are selected. And that means here that the header row is dark blue and the column is dark blue. If I deselect first column and select banded rows, take a look at what happens. I didn't change the table. See, it's still selected up here. It's wrapped in blue. And so we see that column A is still that dark blue. I just altered it a little bit. I really feel like this is a good formatting trick that not many people use when they're finding a table format. So if I go back, it's this table style options. It's automatically there when you make a table. And then by selecting and deselecting columns, you can change it up a little bit. I have also used last column. So instead of the first column being the dark blue, maybe it's the last column because that's the summary column, or that's the next steps column. So I really like the idea of changing that from the first column to the last column. But this is another little hidden gem in my opinion, and it's a really good trick. Let's take a look at some other table formatting in action. These are some things that I do to make formatting my tables easier. So this is another video, and what I want to show you, a few things here. So one, click and drag to change the size of your table. You can go under the Layout tab to not only center text, but to center it within the cell. That's a great trick. You can also change the lines on your borders. And I tend to do this. I tend to make thicker or thinner borders based on what kind of chart I'm making or what kind of information I'm conveying. So here I just changed everything to dark black lines. You can do all borders outside, inside. Let's stick with inside. Change your pen color. And I really love, oh wait, let's go back. There we go, inside borders. I really love Border Painter because that lets you do cell by cell. So instead of doing all inside or all outside, I could just do one at a time. So if it's just one cell that I want to highlight, then Border Painter is the way to go. I wanted to point out one other thing. I'm going to see if I can pause this video. There we go. So when you're resizing a column or resizing a table, I will use my mouse to see over here where this double arrow is. I will use my mouse to resize the table with that table resizing square, for lack of a better term, instead of going to the Layout tab and trying to use the measurements, because this way you visually get a better understanding of what it is you want the table to look like. So that's a great tip that I use. And let me see if I play again, if we get a picture of the Layout tab, because it may or may not, I can't remember if I put it in this video or not, but I want to just give you a visual of what, there we go, of what I mean. So right here you see height 0.31 and width 1.26. And instead of measuring or moving the table using these first, I first use the mouse resize tool and click and drag and make my table where I want it. And then I go back to the height and width to adjust it as needed. So that's another trick for me that works really well, is to first adjust the table itself, but then to do rows and columns individually by going to height and width over here in this Layout tab. So another thing about tables that can be really tricky is getting everything lined up the way that you want it. So what happens to me is I mess with the table so much that it ends up looking like the table on the left. And then I have to click in a cell to see, oh, this one's 0.45, but I need it to be 0.52. And then I'm highlighting rows and I'm going to the Layout tab and I'm, typing in 0.52, and that takes up time. So in order to make the table on the left look like the table on the right, here's my trick for you. Under table layout, instead of using that height and width, those height and width options, you're going to click distribute rows or distribute columns. Now in this case, my columns are fine. It's the rows that are messed up. So if I click distribute rows, it turns the table on the left into the table on the right with one click. That has saved me hours, I think, in the span of my lifetime using Microsoft Word, because it would take me quite a few minutes to try to adjust all of these cells and columns, or cells and rows myself. So distribute rows and distribute columns is a very handy tool. Tricks for large tables. So if you are creating lengthy tables in Microsoft Word, which I do, especially if I'm doing it in an appendix, what you might find is that your table bleeds on to the next page. And then that becomes tricky for the reader because they forget what the top header column is. So just like in Microsoft, so in Excel, you can freeze the top row as you scroll down in a large table. In Microsoft Word, here's how you get around that. When you go to your table and you've activated your table, then under Table Layout, you click that Properties icon over there on the left. This is a great box that not many people use. And then for row, you have Repeat Header Row. So let me explain that again. In this table, I told Word that this top row is my header row, this top blue row, because I highlighted it. So I highlight this row, okay? Then I go up to Layout and Properties. And then on the row, I click Repeat as Header Row at the top of each page. And there you go. So that's a great tip. If this table ends up getting trimmed down, and let's say it goes from this many rows to 5 rows, that header on page 2 automatically will disappear because the table doesn't bleed over to page 2 anymore. So you don't have to go in and remove that. So I really like that feature well. I have a question. Why is it that setting the header to repeat doesn't work occasionally? I've gotten documents that have not allowed me to make that change. I wonder if it has to do with your section breaks. If I am going to use a table that bleeds over into 2 pages, I want that to be in its own section so that Microsoft Word knows, Microsoft Word can follow along. So, hey, there's just text on pages 1 through 3, pages 4 and 5 are tables, and is one table, and then page 6 starts again. So that is the next page section break. When using large tables, I always do a next page, or a best practice is to do a next page section break. I don't typically use section breaks if I'm doing small tables, but I definitely do for those larger tables. Yeah, so if you don't have any section breaks in your document, try putting section breaks in there. That's what I meant. A section break helps Microsoft Word understand the formatting that you're trying to use. It's just easier. So try adding section breaks. Here's another trick for a large table. So something that really bothers me is when things aren't aligned. And I get really frustrated in Microsoft Word because it's harder to put something, it's harder to click and drag and put like images and tables into the very center or left align or right align in the document. So take a look at this trick, which is how you center a table. So our table, oh wait, that's not the one I want. So here we go. Whoops. I'm getting ahead of myself today. So with the table selected, you go to Layout, you go back to that Table Properties tab, and on the Table tab, you click Center. And look at that, it centers it. So something that you might not be using that is a very helpful tool in Microsoft Word is this Properties icon underneath the Tables Layout tab. So when your table is activated, you click Layout and then you click Properties. And I'm using it a few times in this section. And what you can do a lot of things with it, but the for purposes of this example, what it does for you is help you to center a table. So this table is off center. That's really bothersome. If I click on Properties, make sure Table tab is selected, then I click Center, and then I click OK. So that's a handy tool as well. My final point about tables is that you can freeze cells. So something kind of frustrating with tables in Microsoft Word is that the cells expand as you enter more text in them. So you can freeze cells so that they all stay a uniform size. And again, that's under that Table Properties icon. What you would do is select Row, and you would select Specify Height. And row height is exactly. So I think the default for this option is minimum, but the what you want it to read is exactly. So you would do this for row and column in order to freeze the size of a cell. And then you go to table properties over here in picture number 2, and you click the options box down here highlighted in blue, and automatically resize to fit contents. So these are a lot of steps. I, in retrospect, should have made a video for this one, but let me walk you through it one more time. Under that table properties icon, you go to row, and you want to do this for column too, and you specify height. The 1 inch here is what automatically populated based on the current size of the table. So that's helpful. And then you just want to make sure that row height reads as exactly. Okay, do it for column. Column height reads as exactly. And then step 2 is to, on this table tab, click on the options tab and automatically deselect this automatically resize to fit contents box. Okay, so Microsoft Word needs you to do both of those things. Deselect that automatically resize, but then also it needs you to say, hey, I want the cell to be exactly this size. I want the cell row and the cell column to be exactly 1 inch high. So Microsoft Word needs you to tell it both of those things. So this may sound a little complex. Take a screenshot of this page and it'll be easy peasy for you. All right, let me clear off those annotations. Okay, so that is the end of the tables section. And now we're going to spend a little bit of time on styles before I go to my top 3 favorite additional master formatting tips. So I know that if you are using Microsoft Word, then you're changing font size, you're changing type of font, you're changing font characteristics like bold or underline or superscript or italicized, and it doesn't it's fine to do it that way if you're doing a 1-page document or, you know, like a 4-page paper. But when you start to create complex documents that need headers and subheaders and maybe, you know, a paragraph with a quote in the middle of it, then that becomes tricky the more and more you have to apply these styles. And so then you find yourself going, okay, so the main header is Times New Roman. Oh no, let's not do that. Arial, size 16 bold, but the subheader is Arial size 14, and then the text should be Arial size 12. And so you're reminding yourself of all of these. And hey, I want to do quotes in Arial size 10 italicized. Microsoft Word has a format, a series of style formats already made for you that make it easier. So again, style refers to the look of your document, especially related to what you most commonly use, which is font size, font type, but it can also be centering text using uppercase, etc. Each time you apply a style, you're doing it manually, right? You're highlighting the text and then you're clicking bold or whatever it is. Using styles in Word is a time saver when you have complex or lengthy documents, and it will make you more efficient because making changes by hand interrupts your flow. If every time you get to a new section, you have to highlight and change the size. So, okay. So let's move to the style menu. So you may have noticed this before, but not used it. In a Microsoft Word document, as soon as you start typing, there are 4 styles that automatically pop up. I like these because they give me consistency. They also are easier to modify, and it's faster navigation to a specific part of the document. So if I have a document that's 10 pages long and the header on each new page is already set to size 20, then visually I know when I'm scrolling through, every time I get to a new page. I can visually tell because I know the size of the header. So I like to use these ready-made styles. Something you may not know about the style menu is that you can take a deeper dive to figure out what style is best for you. A question just came in, is it best to apply a style right at the beginning or after you create the document? So you could do it one of two ways. If you know exactly what you want or you use the same style pretty regularly, then do it at the beginning. I have, though, typed my whole document and not done anything with styles until the end, and then figured out which style works best for me. So I've done that too. Um, um, at the beginning is probably a little easier. So if you notice up in the style menu, so this menu up here is that default menu that comes, that's on that top ribbon. But down here, if you click that little, I don't know the technical term for this, I'm going to call it the expand icon, then you get this styles box. Now, the great thing about this styles box is it tells you with these symbols on the right what type of style this is. So normal is a paragraph style. Heading one is a paragraph and font style. So the A means font. Subtitle is a paragraph and font style. So I like to expand because I can't always remember what each of these is, and it helps me. I can see them there, but I can also see what type of style they are. See down here, I'm going to see if I can change colors with this. Oh, yes, I can. Let's see. So down here under show, oops. I want to go back to my squares. I think that those probably look better for you guys since I'm such a terrible drawer. Down here, if you select the show preview box, then these styles as they appear in a list will appear like you see up here at the top. So that can be helpful too, to see what they look like and see if they're paragraph and text. But what I really want to focus on is this icon right here that you may have never clicked on before, because Word has more styles than just these that appear. And this is how you can customize your styles in order to make ones that are right for you, so you're not always changing and highlighting and spending more time than you need to on creating section headings. Like if you know that you like to use Arial print, Arial font, size 18 bold for your headings, then customize and make your own style and just have it. So you just click on it and it's there, which I think somebody says, yeah, it's handy to create templates for types of docs that contain styles for just that type of document time saver. Yep, so you can also create document templates as well, but you can save customized styles. So I want to show you on the next screen how this little icon works. It's the Manage Styles icon. When you click that Manage Styles icon, a dialog box pops up with a bunch of new styles. So for example, these are all hidden until used. So this color shading accent 5 looks like this. There's a green line that appears at the top of or before the body text. So, hey, that's kind of cool. Maybe you want to use that. Maybe you want to play around with this so that you come up with something you like. And in that case, you click modify. You could change that 11 point to 15 point font. You can do so many things here. You could probably go down a rabbit hole figuring all of this out and making some pre-made styles that fit you the best. But hey, think of all the time you would save once these are created. And then notice down here at the very bottom of this screen, I really like this feature too, which is, hey, not only do I want to use it in this document, but hey, here's where that template idea comes in. New documents based on this template. So again, saving these styles can help you in the long run. Related to styles also is your table of contents. So the table of contents is tricky, and that's why it's best to know before you start typing your document that you're going to do a table of contents. I highly recommend that you just use automatic table 1 and automatic table 2, because manual table is a custom table, and yes, it gives you more control, but it takes a lot of effort. And in automatic table 1 or automatic table 2, you can edit the styles, right? So when you're using, here's the catch. Automatic table 1 and automatic table 2 will pull in your built-in style. It will not pull in a custom style. So if you choose, I'm going to go back to visually show you what I mean. If you choose, let's say we choose this, this style right here, okay? Since that's a built-in style from Microsoft Word, then when I go to, come on, let me figure this out. When I go to do my table of contents, that style will be part of my table of contents. But if I make a custom style where I've changed, I've got different different style requirements, then the automatic table 1 and automatic table 2 won't pull that in, and you would want to do a manual table, or be okay with a complementary style that looks similar but maybe not the exact same as the rest of your document. When you choose automatic table 1 or table 2, you just need to click that modify button, and you can modify any part of the table of contents. There was a question a little bit ago about table of contents. If I have one table of contents that covers an entire document, can my document still have multiple sections? Absolutely. You can have one table of contents on the, let's say, page 2 of your document, but then you can still use sections. So that's the continuous break or the next break section, in order to tell Word different formatting pieces like page number, etc. So yeah, you absolutely can. All right, so those were my tips for using styles in Word. And now I want to jump into my top 3 favorite extras. So just to give you some insight into the flow of this webinar, we've covered sections, we've covered tables, and we just finished covering styles. After these extras, I left some time to go back and show anything a second time that anyone might want to see, and then also time for questions as well. All right, so my first favorite is find and replace. So take a look at this long document that I have. This one ended up being about 8 pages long, and so I needed to do some formatting with this document that would take me a long time without this handy trick. So find and replace is when there's a word in your document that maybe you capitalized wrong, maybe you want to put in all caps, maybe you spelled it wrong, and you need to change all of them in the document, or make sure that each one in the document looks right. So take a look at how find and replace works. You can do one of 2 things. You can use the keyboard shortcut Control F, and then you type in the word dashboard. Hold on a second, let me go back because I think I got ahead of myself. All right, so you can do one of 2 things. You can use Control F to just find the word, or you can use Control H to find and replace the word immediately. I'm going to show you how to use Control F because I like this function better. So this post, or this document, is about dashboards. And what I realized now after finishing this document is, oh no, I wanted to capitalize dashboards. I didn't want it to be lowercase. All right, so now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to push Control F, and that will bring up the navigation pane. I type in the word dashboard. It appears 25 times in my document. Each one is highlighted. Then I can click replace and say, hey, replace any lowercase dashboard with an uppercase D, and do replace all. All done. And so in 10 seconds, I have replaced all lowercase dashboards with a dashboard with a capital D versus going through line by line. And so one thing I really like about this is for word usage. So maybe it's not that I need to capitalize dashboards. Maybe it's that I'm typing something to go on the web, and for SEO, I want to be sure I use dashboards a certain number of times. If the article is about dashboards, I need to make sure it shows up pretty regularly for search functions. So now I can see that it shows up 25 times. I can see where it appears in headings. I can see how many times it appears on pages or on each page. So does page 2 have it 10 times and page 1 has it 2 times? And then I can see very quickly a snapshot of each sentence that that word is part of. So I really love this function, not only to replace in case I've made a grammatical or a spelling error, but also for word frequency, or also even to see how I'm using words. Like maybe it's that I used a vocabulary word that I'm not sure if I used it in the right way. So I can find and then get a quick snapshot of how I used it in the sentence to double check myself. So this is a super tool that helps me with with formatting. Whole document changes. So here's this whole document. I'm going to use Control A to select it because I've realized that my margins are too big and I want to make the margins smaller, and that I also want to indent every line, every second and third line in new paragraphs. Okay, so I've got this document again, it's 6 pages long, and I need to change my margins and I need to indent every second and third line. So Control A highlights the whole document, and then watch how everything changes. So now I can play around, oops, now just Control A again. Now I can play around with my margins. I can play around with all of this formatting. See, I just moved it back over. And now if I click and drag that very top arrow, I changed the first line formatting, and look how now in each paragraph, so I'll just circle this one here. So lines 2 and 3 are indented, and I was able to do that in the whole document just by using Control A and then formatting my margins. So when I have whole document changes, I love this feature. And I try to do it when the whole document is done, so that I don't have to keep doing it throughout the document. Or keep changing it up, like, oh, I like it, no, I don't like it. Okay, wait, let me return everything to the way that it was. So I really like to do it when my document is done. We've got some questions coming in. Let me see if there's anything about whole document tables. Can Word track and update page numbers in the table of contents on matching the headers, subheaders used in the document that match those in the table? Oh, okay, so this is a table of contents question. I'm going to come back to that. Okay, so let me show you my last favorite tip. Pictures. So I have this same document creating our interactive dashboards in Excel, and now I want to put a picture in. So you know what, I should have used a better picture because this is a picture of a table. It's not an actual table. So I'm getting a little meta here on you, everybody. This is a picture of a table, not an actual table. So I've put the picture in, and Word automatically, because it was so big, threw the picture over to page 2. That is so frustrating. And it can be so frustrating to then try to manipulate the picture. So let me show you my picture best practices. So when I resize the picture, once it gets smaller, Word's going to automatically put it over here on the left side of the screen. Oh, okay, that looks good. But you know what? I don't really like how easy it is down there in the bottom left, and I don't really like all of this white space. So with the picture selected, you are going to click on Position and take a look at what starts happening. Okay, so this is Position with text wrapping. Okay, well, that's great, but I want to give you something that I think is even easier to use and better than just position. And that is, oops, let me select the picture, wrap text. Tight is what I do to every single picture that I put in Microsoft Word, because you have full functionality and are able to move that picture anywhere you want. So now you can see that I needed to put that image right below that image 1. Now my title can be, my section title, little segment title can be moved. And now I can start playing around with how I want the text to appear all around that picture. So I always go to, let me see if I can start it again. I always, and I'll freeze it on this screen so that you can see. Let me here. I might need to go back. There we go. So again, with the picture selected, it's up here in the position and wrap text icons. Position is a useful one, sure. I do like it, but what I like the most and what helps me the most is, instead of using position, because that just keeps the table in left alignment, center alignment, or middle or right alignment, instead of using position, I click on the wrap text icon. Let me get you back there. There we go. And I use tight. So this is the money formatting tip for when you have pictures. This gives you full control over the picture, and it allows you to really manipulate your text so that the picture isn't causing everything to discombobulate. Now, you can take this a step further, and after every picture, insert a section break, which is really the best practice that I should use in this document, so that after getting started, I put a section break in. After dashboard 1, I put a section break in so that dashboard 2 starts on its own page, because this is a document now that I need to put all of these images in. So I would combine section breaks with uh, picture to make this even easier to manipulate. All right, so I have talked a lot longer than I thought that I would about all of these formatting tricks. So I hope that you got some useful things out of it. I'm going to open the Q&A right now and see what I've missed. So let's see, is it possible to split one cell into 2 cells without affecting the other cells? It is. I would Google this because I'll tell you how to do it right now. You would want to freeze the cells first. So you would use the freeze panes that I went through, and then you just right click in the cell and choose split. And it should keep everything frozen around it so that the other cells don't change size. And then it should turn your cell into the number of rows and columns that you want. So I would try that. Let's see. If Word track and update page numbers on the table of contents based on matching headers and subheaders. So the short answer here is yes, that Word will track and update page numbers in your table of contents based on matching headers and subheaders. But I cannot remember the steps off the top of my head to do that. There might be some certain checkboxes that you have to select in order to make that work. So for this question, can Word track and update page numbers in the table of contents based on matching the headers and subheaders? The short answer is yes, but I do think that it's not just an automatic yes, that there's some formatting selections that you might need to do. So I would absolutely Google that to find those steps, because I can't remember them off the top of my head. How do you undo section breaks and make a document the same formatting for the whole document, specifically different headers and footers? So here's the thing about planning, because if once you start putting section breaks in and then you want to go back and change everything to the same style, you complicate, you just make it more complicated. So if you have section breaks already in, what I would recommend is that you just keep them there, and then you do a style, you just apply it to each section. So you just would apply that same header or that same style to each section. You can remove a section break. To me, it just makes it more complicated. So if I've already got section breaks in there, then I want to change formatting and make everything the same, then I would just apply that formatting 3 or 4 times to my section breaks. Don't get section happy until you know for sure what sections you need. Oh, a good tip, you can right-click the picture selected and choose wrap text. You absolutely can. I love a good right-click. Can you show how to do the margins for the second and third lines again? Yes. Let me show that. We have about 6 minutes remaining. So there's, so let me go back to that. Okay, so whole document changes. Control A is select all. So if I Control A here, then I can start moving the margins around. Let me get to the point where I make it happen, and I will freeze it for you. Let's see. Oops, Control A, we're gonna move it. All right, so right here in the ruler margin icon, these triangles actually do mean something. So triangle 1, I'm gonna try to put a line through it. That top one right there is for the first line of every paragraph. Let me see if I can choose a different color. This second triangle is for the remaining lines of every paragraph. And this, put this in brown, this rectangle below those triangles, that is for changing everything at the same time. So the rectangle is what I've been clicking and dragging on to move everything at the same time. And to indent the second to everything except for that first line of a paragraph, in this example, I clicked on that top triangle and moved it left. And when I did that, it moved the first line of every paragraph and kept lines 2 and 3 exactly where they were. So that's a neat trick. I could have moved the bottom one, and see right here how you can tell that I did it. The top triangle is in its own spot, and this bottom triangle and rectangle are in the same spot. So you know what? Those might have technical, like a technical term, but I'm just calling them triangles. So is there a quick way to do this instead of manually changing each section? Oh, back to the section break. So there is a quick way to remove a section break. I think just Google how to remove a section break, and it'll bring it right up. I can't off the top of my head remember exactly where you do that in the ribbon. All right, so I think I have gotten through all of the questions, and there was someone who asked to go through this example one more time, the find and replace. So I'm going to play it for you one more time, and then we are going to wrap up. So again, find and replace. Control F is just find, and Control H is find and replace. And then let's see, so here, if I do Control F and type in the word dashboard, then this is what happens. The word dashboard is highlighted. It shows up over here on the left. And then from this point, I can click on that on the down arrow and choose replace. Okay, or I can go to a certain part of the document. Look, hey, you can also find tables and equations. Isn't that great? But if I click on replace, then what comes up is my find and replace box. Now, if you do Control H, this is the box that comes up automatically, is this find and replace box. If you do Control F, what you get first is this navigation pane on the left, and then you have to choose replace. But once I've got this box up, I type in what I want to replace lowercase dashboard with and click replace all. 25 replacements made in 10 seconds. I love that. I love find and replace. It is such a useful formatting tool. All right, so if you had a question that didn't get answered, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or via my website, and I'll try to help you as best I can. Other than that, thanks everybody. Have a great evening or afternoon wherever you are. Bye bye.